Hello, and thank you for turning out to another edition of Turning for Home. I'm your host, Andrew Calvano, and every week what we're going to be doing is bringing on new handicappers to get different angles from different people that I can personally trust as some of the best in the game. In weeks past, we've seen guys like Dan Torgman, Mark DiLorenzo, Bobby Shoemaker, and a couple weeks ago, we also had a good friend of mine, Steven Schwartz, on, and he's back again this evening to cap what should be an excellent Whitney Day card at Saratoga for August 5th. We got Gunrunner in the mix here. With some rain in the forecast, we'll see how he takes it here. Most likely a single in all the pick 4 tickets, pick 5 tickets, whatever it may be. But he hasn't really taken to the mud just yet in his career. So we'll see. So, Steve, thank you for coming on, and hopefully we got some winners in the sequence.
My pleasure. And this is an unbelievable pick 4. One thing, and a lot of handicappers reach out to me about certain handicapping tips. What I love about the late pick 4 to late pick 5, which are unbelievable bets, is that you can watch the first 5, 6, 7 races and really see how the track is playing. And that's so important, especially as we've seen previously on the dirt. Speed has been gold lately. On the turf, especially the outer turf, you're able to close from the outside. So, I think it's important for all handicappers. You had to go in with a certain mindset, but also be prepared to adjust depending on how the track is playing.
For sure, for sure. And like you mentioned, that NYRA late pick 5 is a very good bet. Obviously, you can either play it on track or signing up through NYRA bets and getting a good promotion. I can't play it. I had to tell Steve to throw in my ticket today. So, Steve, I thank you for throwing it in, although I think we were knocked out of that one pretty quickly. So, hopefully.
Yeah, we definitely got bobbed out at the end, but, we keep firing. That's definitely something we keep doing.
The bob didn't go our way, and that's the story. That's the story of my life, it seems. But let's get to this one. So we'll start here in race 8 on Saturday. It's the Grade 1 test. 7 furlongs for 3-year-olds here on the dirt. And your favorite is number 10, American Gal, for Simon Callahan and Jose Ortiz. Steve, looking at this race, we have 2 California invaders. Well, I should say one. In Baffert sorts, and that's Fapian, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, number 8, Baffert and Bejarano. And then, obviously, American Gal, who just came back for the victory ride on the day before Belmont Stakes Day to win that by 4 lengths, but obviously in Santa Anita for the majority of her career before that. Steve, what do you make of the favorite in this race? Obviously, me looking at it, I thought Baffert would be the favorite just with his track record coming to New York in the past month, it seems. But what do you make of these two, American Gal and the Baffert horse here, Fapian?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if the Baffert horse actually goes off the favorite because it's Baffert. Even when he came to Belmont during the big Belmont day, he and Mike Smith won everything. So if the morning line may have American Gal as the favorite, chances are Baffert may be the one to go off the favorite. Still, I actually think American Gal is the horse to beat here. If you look, the horse really has not done much wrong at all. Coming second to Abel Tasman, who's considered much the best horse in the division right now, losing only by a length is not exactly a crime. But prior to that, coming third in the Grade 1 Juvenile, where he got a really bad trip, again, not a crime. We may be looking at actually on a fair racetrack, which again is a big, if. We may be looking actually the best horse in the division right here, and this may be its time to shine right here. I think, although I am not even close to coming selling this horse, this is the horse to beat.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. If we look back here at American Gal, those 2 races that you mentioned where, we got some excuses here in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies going long for the first time, and obviously that was asking a lot. That last race she won before that, wasn't a graded stakes or anything. It was just a hand ride win in a 5-horse field. So obviously the challenge of not only going 2 turns for the first time, but facing just much better horses definitely poses a challenge to her. But she ran a very good third there. And then, like you mentioned, the second behind Abel Tasman, who, winning the Kentucky Oaks, and we're probably going to see that one here again very soon. So I'm going to agree with you. I think American Gal is the one to beat. This Baffert horse coming off that Grade 2 win at Santa Anita also looks pretty impressive here. Didn't have a good break in her debut back on March 11th with Martin Garcia. Lost to Paradise Woods, who I believe went off favored in the Kentucky Oaks. So I think these ones are definitely worth including into the pick 4. But I'm going to use those 2, and I'm going to use 2 other horses here. And I'll get into my top selection before I go into the other value play. And And that's going to be my top pick's going to be number 1, Mini Blip for Javier Castellano and Al Stahl. Second off the layoff, Al Stahl's been sending limited runners out so far, but he's been clicking in every spot. 4 starts, 2 wins in the second. One of those wins, came with Javier Castellano aboard. The horse was 5-1 morning line, got pounded down to 6-5. I think the connections are right on the money with this one. Now, jumping up in class, do not get me wrong, $75,000 optional allowance up to a 7-furlong grade 1 race. But this one really hasn't shown too much wrong to start off her career. Won her maiden in incredible fashion. Next out versus winners. Showed some early speed, but was eventually flattened. Comes back off a layoff last time out at Churchill Downs. Goes on the front end. I think the rail draw here, you get Castellano, who's going to be aggressive out of the gate. The connections are hot. But here's the one thing I will mention that I think gives one a big advantage. We're expecting a lot of rain here in Saratoga this weekend. By the time this race goes off, if it's a sloppy course, this one crushed last time in the slop and ran a very good race 2-back in the slop. You have some others here that have done well on the wet surface, but this one's numbers from last race are really popping out to me. And listen, I'm going to take a shot. I know the Baffert horse is probably going to be 9-5 or 8-5, and the other California horse for Simon Callahan, American Gal, may also be 9-5. So I'm going to look with some value here, because if you're looking to either single gun runner, then you're off to a very chalky start. So I'm going to try to get some value. I think it's worth adding 2 more horses. So I'm going to go with Mini Blip. Before I get into my other selection, Steve, I'll let you go ahead with your top selection here for the test.
Yeah, my top selection is the 10. And I say that with me actually going 7 deep in this leg. And then the reason I'm going 7 deep in this leg is I had 2 very strong opinions later on. I definitely went through the first leg. I looked at the 1. I am including him on my ticket. My concern is, and I agree, being on the rail, I don't think he has any choice but to go for the lead. And I'm not sure either, A, if he can get it, or 2, I really believe he's going to be pressured by the 3. And the fast speed will pick up very quickly. Again, we would have to adjust, see how the track is playing. We're expecting that rain. How's the track going to play with a little moisture in it? But you definitely have to upgrade the 1 in a little bit of off track. I really want to look at the 2. I don't believe he's actually going to be 6-1. Anything Chad Brown goes off 6-1 or higher is a pipe dream. But I was really impressed last time out with this horse. I was able to close into a really slow pace, and out of that race came 2 next time out winners. So it's definitely a live race. It's Chad Brown. You get Ortiz, nice layoff. He does well at the layoff. I can see this one taking a big step up, and he'll have to take a big step up to be competitive here. But I can see that one taking a big step up. I'm also including 3, Paco Lopez with speed. If we do continue to see the track play favorable speed, this is someone you want to include. Do I like him on top? No, but it's not someone I want to get knocked out in. Couple long shots that really pique my interest. The 4, Tequilita, I feel like I keep chasing this horse, and eventually I'm going to hit with her. But I feel she may be ready to pop a big race here. I definitely don't want to lose at a 15-1 price here. The slop does concern me here. I would actually downgrade this horse in the slop. And another big horse that, talk about a claim. And I know you and I, sometimes we play the claiming game. We have a couple horses, and we're always looking for that next big one. You're
going right to it. Go ahead, Steve. You got my second selection right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, the job that Danny Gargan has done on the 7, Divine Miss Gray, is unbelievable. When we talk about, this was in a $16,000 claimer at one point, and now we're jumping off into, the best of the best within the division. Again, if the track does come up a little bit sloppy, we got to upgrade this horse. This horse is steadily improving each time out. I feel the 7-furlong distance is right up this horse's alley. 12-1, Manny horse is improving. Again, 10 is my top pick, but I think this is definitely a race where we can catch a price.
And I agree with you. And just to piggyback off of like you mentioned, number 7, Divine Miss Gray, that's going to be the other horse I'm including in here. And I just want to backtrack with this one a little bit. Claim from Brian Lynch back at Gulfstream Park, March 17th. Then obviously switched to Danny Gargan as they came up here for the New York meet. But off the claim, finishes 5th in optional 50 at Gulfstream Park. I had that as a speed bias day. This one didn't really get the best of rides, whatever. I'll toss it, sure. But let's move on to these races in which Danny Gargan has his ones in hand. Goes for a claiming 40, goes right through the box, doesn't get claimed, goes off 8-5, wins easy. 2-back, In the slop, what we may see here today, a starter allowance group goes on and wins by 4.5 in hand, beats Luz Mimi, a very good horse that we're going to see back on Sunday in a sharp allowance race. So we'll see that one. And then last out, another sharp allowance, stretches out, going that 1-turn mile at Belmont, beats Smiles Big and Stormy Song, who was an excellent debut winner. If you recall, that Thursday before Belmont Stakes went off with a big number, the 2-horse won by something 7 lengths. So I think Stormy Song, who was facing winners for the first time that day, is definitely going to improve off that layoff. And I just think this one has been facing some very sharp horses. Now, big jump up in here today. Grade 1 racing off, 6 months ago, this one was in the claiming box. Big step up. I think this one drifts up in price. I think you get near 20 to 1.
I agree.
20 to 1 on Danny Gargan. I'm willing to roll the dice. I must include in my pick fours. Gargan's been ultra hot as of late. 1-1 on Thursday with Carmusha board on the 2-horse. I think this one is ultra game. Obviously, big jump up, but must include. So I'm going to go 1, 7, 8, 10 out of this race. Steve, I said you're going a little deeper.
Yeah, I'm 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10. I want to get at his first leg because, like I said, I have 2 very strong opinions later. One thing I also want to mention is that being around Naira, you really pick up on certain trainer traits. And Danny Gargan, when he moves his horses up in class, a lot of people are afraid of that because they feel that they're running out of class, that it's too hard. When he puts horses in a specific position, there's a reason for it. When he jumps horses up in class, they're usually ready to be very competitive. When he drops horses, I don't care. The course could be 1 to 5. I don't bet them. So this is a very aggressive mood, and that breeds confidence for me in looking at that horse.
For sure. And you and I, we always seem to fall on these Danny Gargan horses. For the guys who follow Steve and I mean, we somehow just kind of pick the same horses over and over again. So we definitely have an eye for this one. So let's get home with a price here. The California horses will be tough, but we're going to try to beat them with a price. And let's move on to the second leg of this pick four. It's the Grade 1 Whitney, a 1.125 miles for 3-year-olds and up here on the dirt. And obviously, your favorite is number 6, Gunrunner, at 4 to 5. Steve, obviously, this one's going to be a single in most tickets. What do you want to do with this one coming off that Stephen F. Foster handicap?
Think about just one race, but really the entire pick four. And like you said, I would probably say 80% of the tickets are going to have this one singled. So he may go off 2 to 5. He's going to be 1 to 9 most likely in the pick four. When you look at the history of this race, 4-year-olds win this race. It's very rare that you see a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old win this race. Predominantly, it's a 4-year-old horse that ran in Derby previously that fits Gunrunner. Usually, it is the favorite or a very low-priced horse. Again, goes back to Gunrunner. This horse is by far the best horse in the race. However, like we said, there are a lot of variables here. I look at the 4 to Brutus. That's going to be a speed horse. We know that there's an uncoupled entry, and we could spend hours on that and that nonsense. But there's going to be another speed going in there. I don't think Gunrunner is going to be able to get the lead here. I think if he does, we can see a very fast-paced early setup. It could compromise the 6. He may just be better than all these. It is quite possible. But do I want to take 1 to 5 on this horse? I'm going to be honest. I went back and forth on this. But I'm actually going to go a little bit deeper. But again, I'm actually hoping when we just see a show. You and I can also appreciate that although we love handicapping, we just love seeing these horses. And when we see a horse like this, sometimes it could be a memorable situation. 6 will be my top choice, but surprisingly, I did go back and forth on this. I want to go a little bit deeper here.
So get into your top selection here, Steve.
All right. So again, depending on how the track is playing, I actually want to include the 4 to Brutus. I think he could be the speed of the speed on a track that's been very, very favorable to speed. I don't know what happened last time out. That does concern me. He had an absolute terrible Grade 2 at Brooklyn. He should have won that race easily, and I don't know what happened. Completely fell apart. I also wonder if this race is even too short for him. It seems like he loves those marathon long distances. It does concern me. However, on this track, never been out of the trifecta. He's 5 for 7 and winners. I want to throw him in as a possible price. I think it could be tricky there. Another thing is, let's say we do get this massive speed up front. I don't know how it doesn't set up for the One War Story, who, again, if it comes up off track, is 3 for 3 in the money in a wet surface. 2 of those by the victory. he would need some help. He would need some of that speed battle to go up front, and he would need Gunrunner not to win on his best race. But I think it definitely could set up for War Story.
And I'm in agreement with you here, Steve. And, same thing with you. It kind of went back and forth. The great thing, like we mentioned, we get to see how the other races are shaping up before we punch our tickets here. Obviously, with a lot of rain in the forecast, if it does come down hard and the track conditions change, to muddy or sloppy, I'm gonna have to try to beat Gunrunner here. If it's fast and these thunderstorms pass us, then I think I only go, either single Gunrunner and play the ticket more expensively. But obviously, the way I'm seeing this rain come in, it looks like that's going to be the former, and I'm going to have to go, 3 deep here like I originally planned, and that's fine. I think Gunrunner is very beatable in the mud. Steve, you were just talking about my top selection here as I handicap this for the mud, and that's number 1, War Story. If we look back this one's last races, one in the Grade 2 Brooklyn last out, granted was going longer, but was very game, and this one really was out of the picture for quite a while as far as winning races. Before that, you had to go to the Queens County. That was over a good track going this distance. And then before that was at Timonium and, beat a 6-horse field by 9 lengths at 1-9 back in July 2016. I think this one's starting to come into form. If we look at this one's races from this year, was in the Pegasus World Cup. Was he beating Arrogate? Was he beating Shaman Ghost? Was he beating Neolithic? No. Still, ran a pretty even 5th, though defeated by 13.5 lengths. Whatever, I'm willing to toss it. Gulfstream Park in the Grade 3, loses to Bird Song, a very good horse. Just kind of ran a very even race. To me, that was a speed bias course that obviously will not benefit him. It should have come up like that today. 2 back in the Charlestown Classic, sloppy race course, was making up some late ground. Just didn't get it there in time. Finishes 3rd by half a length. Gets necked out by Matt King Cole, who would go on to win next out. And then we get to that Grade 2 Brooklyn. I'm not the biggest fan of playing Navarro up here at Saratoga, and it cost me the other day because I threw out that horse El Deal last weekend to start off the pick 4. So obviously don't want to leave this one off my tickets. Like you mentioned, if the track is wet, it's going to play to this one's advantage. But let's look at the pace here. Like you mentioned, 2 Brutus is going to be a one-way speed horse. I'm also going to include that one as well. But we have a rabbit in here, and I think things are going to heat up. So I think this one is a must use. And let's not forget, the rabbit is for this horse. So how many times do we see that work? So War Story is going to be my top selection in the Whitney. Obviously, Gunrunner is a must include in my pick 4. I'll be going 1, 4, 6. And like I mentioned, should the track come up fast, maybe I debate singling Gunrunner, but I don't see it that way. So I am going to go 1, 4, 5 here to keep this pick 4 rolling. Steve, you mentioned a couple horses, but who's going to be like your top selection here, and who are you going to go on to pick 4 to keep rolling?
I'm going to back you on go 1, 4, 6 here. Another thing to look at Gunrunner, and it's kind of a red flag for me. His best races are when he's on the lead. He's not getting the lead today.
Yeah. And
I'm not sure if his best races can come from behind with mud in his face. I will say that the 1 is my top pick. I'm actually kind of rooting for the 6. I like seeing superstars. I think we need more superstars in this game and celebrate them. But I'm not sure if the dynamics, the mud, the pace, up perfectly for him. For that, I'm siding with the 1. Inside, I am rooting for the 6, though.
Awesome. So Steve and I on the same page here with number 1, War Story. Obviously you'll be rooting for Gunrunner, but in our pick 4s, we're going to spread a little bit, and 2 Brutus is the other horse we'll include to keep rolling in this pick 4. Steve, we come to the 3rd leg of the pick 4. It's a fasig-tipton Della Rose, a mile on the turf for fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and upward. And your favorite is number 2, Sassy Little Lila for Brad Cox and Luis Saez, coming off that 2nd place effort in the Just a Game. This is a pretty deep field here. We got 12 runners. Steve, what do you make of the favorite? What are we going to do here in the pick 4?
Well, I've gone pretty deep in the 1st and 2nd leg, so I got to take a stance somewhere, and this is where I'm taking a stance. I like the 2 as a horse. I think it's an impressive horse with an unbelievable future. Again, when we talk about race dynamics, I don't know if the race dynamics play into the here. There seems to be a ton of speed, and I feel like I always say that in New York, and then it turns out there's a horse alone in the lead, and they wire the field.
Of course.
just a ton of speed. You can have the 2 go to lead, 3 wants to go to the front. The 12, who's trying the dirt for the first time, it looks like he wants to go to the front. You have the 9, who's also a speed horse. It looks like you should get a nice pace scenario. I wanted to find the single here. I landed on the 7 on leave as my single with Shug McGahee, Ortiz, 2 for 2 in the exact at Saratoga, perfect 3 for 3 at this distance. They need a little pace to develop for a little bit of a closing kick. They should get it here. I needed to pick a single somewhere. To me, this is my single. This is basically, I'm making a $52 win bet on the 7 here, except I hope not to get 3 to 1. I hope to get paid off huge in the pick 4. This is where I make my stance. I love his last race where they were able to close really strong into a very slow pace. If he was able to close into that slow pace, I think he can really have a late turn of foot with a lot of pace. I can see him winning 2 or 3 lengths, and I don't see many horses that could beat him. If the 2 is that good and can wire this field, then you know what? We're looking at a superstar. I don't think that's the case here.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you here. I'm actually 3 deep in the spot. My ticket's actually 4 by 3 by 3 by 2. It's a $36 ticket. You're just going through the field here. Number 1, Thundering Sky. Just don't think this horse is good enough to win this race whatsoever. Sassy Little Lila, like we mentioned, should we get some rain on the turf course? This one has handled the wet grass very good back in that fall of 2016 into the winter of 2016. That last race at Grade 1 American Oaks was nosed out by Decked Out. Then came back off that long layoff in May. Prep race for the Just a Game, wins that. Just coughs up the lead late in the Just a Game behind a good Chad Brown horse and Antonone, who finished 3rd in the Diana behind Lady Eli a couple weekends back. And let's not forget that ride Castellano put on Antonone, going from 6 wide to the rail and sneaking up. So I think, just the luck was not on her side that day. So Sassy Little Lila is a must include for me. I think she gets loose on the front end and then, get some pressure late. It's just a matter of where she's going to hold them off here. But I do agree that, there are going to be some other horses up there. But I think, she will be in command of the lead. It's just a matter of being pressed. Number 3, Freddie On. Another horse is going to show speed, just not good enough to win this. Puka, to me, the horse is just a dirt horse. I'm not really sure, he's built for the turf. Borelli, 20 to 1, Castellano Motion. Off that win at Delaware. I think this one is a good horse to key around in some trifectas. Buyer Speed Figure didn't come back that strong last time out, but I want to key that one around for West Point, who's been giving some great turf horses to Graham Motion and been winning at a good clip here. Lornette the 6, not good enough. Now we get to number 7, On Lead. This is your horse. Not my top selection, but I'm going to include this one as well, and I'll tell you why. If the 2 is pressed at all, this race sets up perfectly for On Leave 100%. At 3 to 1, I think that's good value for a horse that already has a strong win over the turf course here. That was last year in the Riverside, if I'm reading that properly. I don't know why it's coming up weird on my past performances here. Wins that race. Like I said, should get a perfect pace set up off a long layoff that Shug isn't really that strong with in the Grade 3 on Preakness Day. So still runs a very good second behind Cambodia. Wins last time out behind Off Limits and Ancient Secret, 2 very good horses. So I'm including that one. Number 8, Bar of Gold. To me, a dirt horse, a wet dirt horse. Not good enough to win in this spot. Sky My Sky has speed, but the race just isn't going to set up for him. And it comes from a very cold barn. Then we get to the other horse I'm also going to include at the Lisi's World. 5 to 1, Chad Brown, Joel Rosario. 2 back. In that same Grade 3 that On Leave comes out of. This one was rallying very, very late. Some extra distance. Probably would have got there. The ride, a little quirky, whatever, was beaten as the even money favorite. Then tries the Parks. Grade 3 last time out. Went off as the favorite, but lost to her stablemate, 4-Star Crook, who I think has rattled off something like 8 in a row now.
Horse doesn't lose, yeah.
Yeah, that horse does not lose. And once again, just faded going into that turn. But I think this one is another one that should the pace really set up, then I think this one's the best deep closer in the game. I'm not thrilled about, Rosario. Wish I had Irad back, but what are you going to do? You bet the horse, you don't bet the jockey. That one is also going to be included. The 11, the other Chad Brown horse. Got to respect Chad Brown. I don't want him to beat me, but I'll let this horse beat me. I don't think he's good enough for this group. And the 12 for Englehart. This one's a dirt horse through and through. I don't think he's going to get the turf the first time, especially in a group like this. So after all that, Steve, for me, I'll be using the logicals here. Sassy Little Lila, the 7 on leave, and Elise's World, the 10 horse here. Hoping that we can beat the favorite here and catch a little more value, especially if we catch Gunrunner in the previous race, because we're definitely going to need a price here. Right. Steve, I know you say you're taking. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I will say actually that the 10 horse was the horse I originally also had with the 7. I had to trim it down. I believe that we could have had that speed early on that would definitely set it up for the 10. I do want to mention, I don't like the horse to win, but underneath, I actually do like Puka a little bit underneath on the 4. You know, I'm a huge Junior Alvarado fan. He hasn't been insane since he came back from that injury. I call him the mile master. His numbers are insane in mile distances. You go back to that grade 3 at Gulfstream when he only finished 2 lengths behind Dickinson. He finished about a length and a half behind Elsa's World, who, again, we like as the 10 here. There are races there that can make him competitive. Again, not to win this race, but again, if that speed can develop, I can see him getting a piece, finish out the trifecta, the super, at a big price. And again, when we're looking at horses that may be short priced and we're trying to play the race itself, sometimes you can make a lot of money with favorites by having horses like that underneath.
Yeah, and I agree. And one of Puka's turf wins came over a yielding turf course. So should that rain really come down, this one has some experience with some wet turf. Junior Alvarado also getting the monkey off his back, wins his first race today in the 9th race on a good horse coming in for Jimmy Jerkins. So I think Alvarado, like you said, off that injury, starting to pick up the pieces. And I agree with you. I think he's a little bit over his head, but it's a horse that can improve and doesn't run that bad on the turf. I just think he's better on the dirt, or at least when it rains on the dirt, because that's the most where we've seen him. But like you said, and I follow you as well on that Junior Alvarado at the mile distance, it's like Lescano going more than a mile. It's just those jockeys. You don't want to play jockeys. You want to play the horses, but it's just those kind of little things that you want to notice, because that's where you get your 12-1 horses. I mean, look at that horse Kabang, who won the 3rd race on Wednesday at Saratoga. Once again, it's Lescano going long on the turf.
Lescano routing on the outside. Absolutely.
Exactly. And we talked about this specifically on Belmont Stakes Day when we ran into one another. These Lescano horses on the far outside going long on the turf. I mean, you must include. I didn't hit that pick 5. I included, but what are you going to do? Steve, you're on the 7 here. Like I said, I'm spreading 3 deep. I'm going 2, 7, 10. And let's move on to the closing leg. Hopefully, we get that 7 alive for you, and then we're both alive to cash here. We're into the 11th race. It's an allowance optional claiming $62,000, 7 furlongs on the dirt for 3-year-olds and upward. Your big favorite here, number 7, Neolithic. Todd Pletcher coming off the Dubai World Cup 3rd place finish behind Arrogate and Gunrunner. Even money. Steve, for me, I think horses coming back off that long layoff from Dubai is very hard to endorse at a price like this. And let's not mention this horse is going to take money. I think this horse goes off 4 to 5, and obviously in the pick 4, probably something like 2 to 5. I'm going to include, but I really want to beat. I think this is one of those Pletcher horses that is good when he races down at Gulfstream Park in the winter, and then he comes upstate and you don't see the same horse. So I think this horse is definitely beatable. Steve, how'd you see it?
Like I said, I had 2 big plays here. My first one was the previous race, the 7. My other big play here is actually going against this horse. I'm not even going to have him on my ticket, and here's why. Is he the horse to beat on class-wise? Absolutely. However, let's take a look at a couple things. One, if it does come up on a wet surface, his 2 races on the off tracks have not been good. I also think this is a prep race really for him. I think he's been pointed to the Woodward, which is, I think he wants a little bit of a longer distance. This is a much shorter distance for him. This screams prep race. Can he win? Yes. Do I want him at 3 to 5, 4 to 5 when this could basically be a workout for him? Absolutely not. Especially for those that are gonna single gun runner. If you go gun runner and then Neolithic, this isn't going to pay. And we're looking for some type of payout here. For me, he's coming back from Dubai. Horses that have come back from Dubai have actually performed very well. But again, this screams prep race to me. And again, it's about really trying to get inside a trainer's head and think about, why is this horse racing here? This horse could be pointed in a lot of different other races that are a lot more competitive, where he could have a competitive chance to win a $200,000-$300,000 race. He's in this race right here, shorter distance than he probably wants, coming back from that long layoff from the bye. Like you said, his success has probably been down in Gulfstream, down south. To me, this screams prep race. I am staying as far away from this horse as possible. I'm not even including him on my pick four ticket.
And I'm going to agree with you here. Like I said, I'm too deep to close. He's also not on my tickets. Steve, I'll jump into my top selection here, and it's a big price. And hopefully we get this one home and make it pay, because if we beat Neolithic in his leg and we're alive, I think it could pay, very well for us. My top selection here is number 4, always a suspect, 12-1, Junior Alvarado and Kieran McLaughlin. McLaughlin said the other day on Naira Live, Saratoga Live with Maggie Wolfendale, that he had a lot of live horses coming into this weekend. And for those who follow, trainer stats and, when they're hot, when they're not, McLaughlin always runs in bunches. He's been heating up as of late. He said himself that, he's alive. And usually when he says that, he's ready to good. And that's why I encourage a lot of people, to watch Naira now, because the trainers are giving great insight on all their horses and future plans and whatnot. But back to this horse specifically, let's start back from the fall. Debuts on turf, doesn't run a step, toss it out. It's the only time he ran on turf anyway. Gets a muddy course, second start, a drop in class, but wins easy in hand by 3 lengths. They immediately protect this one. Starter allowance group, wins by behind the next out winner. Lost in the fog, gets necked out at the wire by a next out winner. Then they tried the Withers, a little over their head here. Grade 3 company, going 2 turns for the first time. Doesn't run a step, toss it. Then comes back to Laura on March 10th. Wasn't beaten recruiting ready that day. Wasn't being, the second place horse came back to win last out. Also was stuck on the rail, and this one doesn't have too much early zip. 2 back, ran an aqueduct over a good racetrack. Granted, he only beat 3 others, but cruised home in the mud. If you watch that replay, tried the Chick Lane last time. Lost to recruiting ready. He already lost 2 in his career. Lost to 3 rules, who came back and won. Once again, tight start on the rail.
Terrible trip also.
Yeah, and just didn't have it that day. I think this is a perfect spot for him. Junior Alvarado gets aboard. Like we said, took the monkey off his back. He won yesterday, but he's been riding very good. If you watch his race, he's been riding very sharp, though he's not winning. I think the confidence is starting to get back into Junior. I think the pace sets up perfectly for him to cover early and make one run late into the top of the stretch. I think at 12-1, this is a must-use, especially if the ground comes up wet. So always a suspect is a big use for me in my top selection to close out this pick 4. Steve, who'd you go with here?
Again, I spread here because if I want to beat Neolithic, I want to make sure that I don't beat him and still not cash here. So I went 5 deep. I did include your 4. My only concern about the 4, and again, he has plenty of excuses. If he comes out with a top race, it would not surprise me. We've talked about previously about 3-year-olds going against older horses. That was a concern for me with this race. However, as we get later in the racing year, it becomes less of a concern. I went with my top choice 3, Realm. The reason why I went with this horse, he had absolutely no shot last time running against Seymour Dini. He tried chasing that horse. There was no way he was going to win that race. Prior to that, never got out of the gate, failed at the $62,000 claim, and was the favorite that day. Then you go back to his grade 3s when Paco was on him last. Those were really competitive races that fit here. I don't know if he can get back to those races, but if he gets back to those races, it fits perfectly in here. You mentioned the pace setup. He should be able to close into that setup here. If he gets the speed, races, the price is right. I get Ortiz. It makes sense for me here. But again, I want to spread a little bit. I went and also took a look at the 2, Brewery. I think, again, a little slow, but okay. I'm looking for prices here that can possibly pop. Another horse I looked at, Motown. Again, it scares me a little bit. This could be a prep for this horse. I think it's a very talented horse. He may need one off the layoff, and he may be pointing to another race later down the road. But again, his workouts in the morning, he looks like he's coming ready to run. He may need a race, but you know what? I'm not letting this horse beat me, even though it could be a prep for him as well. If I take a look at another big price, the 9, Luna Del Luco. You take a look, he was able to close really nicely. He was 7 wide last time and able to close into a speed bias. he runs anything similar to that race on a fair racetrack, we shot to win an upset at 12-1. He has some success on a wet track. If it comes up wet at 12-1, I'm definitely not throwing off my ticket. And the last horse I'm going to throw in the 10, Bravo. I think he sends. Good old Jersey Joe, when he gets the lead, he could be dangerous. You go back, back to his race at Santa Anita, and I know Santa Anita's a little tricky because that also was a little bit of a speed bias track. He should be early on. He could get first jump on these horses. Again, a decent price that I don't want to exclude. Here, again, I'm going 5 deep to close out my ticket. Hopefully, we get through the first 3 legs. We catch a price by bidding Neolithic, and I'll see you at the IRS.
And then hopefully that's the story here. Just to piggyback off a couple horses you mentioned. The 10 with Jersey Joe Bravo aboard. Candy Promises. Valenti's been going out to California himself and bringing back a couple sharp horses. And watch how money gets taken on this horse, because usually Connections bet him big when he's live. So definitely watch out for this one. The trainer and the Connections have already teamed up for a win on opening day here. Like you mentioned, number 2, Berry. I think this one is live, but I think this one needs, a lot to happen for him. But I think he's a big price. You can wheel him around for sure. But the other horse in here that I'm going to use was a horse you mentioned. It may have been a prep. I'm hoping it's not, because I think this one can really, run big in this field. And that's number 6, Motown, for IRAD. If you go back to this one's 6 furlong race here over the course, ran a very good second behind Reckling, second out of Belmont over a muddy course, stretched out to that 1-turn mile, won in hand by 7 lengths, defeated Everybody Loves Rudy, who's come back to do some good himself, then runs in the Grade 2 Remsen. They were trying to get this one into the Derby, wins the Grade 2 Remsen, goes back for the Risen Star at Fairgrounds, beaten favorite, race didn't set up for him. Maybe he didn't really, want to be there. Maybe the ship, whatever, off a long layoff, some excuses, loses to Gervin, who came back to win the Haskell. In the Wood Memorial, a speed rail bias day, didn't show any of that to get in the favor of the bias, loses to Irish Warkai, and Cloud Computing comes back to win the Preakness. I think this one is a dirtied up form, but I love the cutback. This one is working lights out for Dutrow. They get Irad Ortiz, who, it's not like you're going from, somebody like Paco to Irad. You're going from Castellano to Irad. So not the biggest jockey upgrade, in my opinion, but still shows the confidence that Irad's getting aboard here. I think this one's ready on the cutback. I think he could sit a perfect trip behind Neolithic, who I think may have some company up front. So I'm going to use 4 and 6 to close this one out. And hopefully, Steve, like you said, we can beat the 7 here, beat Gunrunner, and hopefully cash what should be a very promising pick 4.
Sounds good. And like I said, there's nothing better than a Saturday at Saratoga. Not surprisingly, we're very similar. On a side note, good luck. I know Lose Mimi will be a single on many of my tickets on Sunday. And the only thing better than watching the races and betting on them is when you're watching your horse come down that lanes and into the winner's circle. So
well, I
good luck to you on that one.
I appreciate it very much, and hopefully we get that one home on Sunday. Steve, your horse busting it, scratched out of the John Moresi last week. Good thing it wasn't a vet scratch. I know you talked to me. The trainer wanted to take some more time. Any update on where this one's heading to?
Yeah, we're looking at a starter allowance in probably another week or two. One of those non-winners of a sweepstakes in 2017, $85,000 race. I think the best thing about a trainer, and I was very disappointed when you're expecting to run, you don't run. But at the end of the day, it's about the horses. It's about making sure that they're healthy. He is healthy. He's working out very well. And for his return at Saratoga, and hopefully I get another picture up on the wall. So thank you for that.
Oh, well, hopefully that is the case. As you can see behind me, I have a collection myself. But, Steve, hopefully we get that one home. Will be a single, probably a better single than mine, to be honest, as Bustin can't really seem to lose these days. So, Steve, best of luck to you with that one. And thank you, everybody, for turning out for another edition of Turning for Home. You can follow Steven Schwartz below here. Al Bundy Poke High on Twitter gives out great insight. Also has a lot of good write-ups for each card he writes for, but also kind of illustrates a bunch of his angles, and how he's been able to make a profit, which, are just excellent tips that even I read off of on anonymousracing.com. So give him a follow and communicate with us all here on Twitter. We're always helping out the handicappers. All right. So thank you guys for tuning out. And Steve, thank you.
Thank you, and let's get them.
Let's go get them, and good luck to everybody playing this week.